So today I'm going to talk about how lessons from flying in combat apply to tech, fighting fraud, and motherhood. So in 2014, I was deployed on the USS George H.W. Bush. I spent 9 months flying combat missions over Iraq and Afghanistan in an E-2C Hawkeye. Basically, that meant that I spent 9 months living on a boat with 5,000 people, with actual toilet shortages, no Wi-Fi, minimal contact from the outside world, and basically doing the same thing every single day, fighting bad guys and making poor decisions about what I was eating. So, fast forward 6 years, I'm out of the Navy, working at a company, and then 2020 hits, and suddenly I'm faced with the same thing, fighting bad guys and making poor eating choices every single day. But this time, I was a brand new mom. And we now had Wi-Fi, Tiger King, and wine. So in a year that I was going through new motherhood and everything else, I felt like an imposter. And the ironic thing about that was that I was actually fighting imposters. Those are some of the pictures of real people we saw wearing masks. So ironically, the overlap between motherhood, combat, national crisis, social isolation, they're remarkable. They all feel the same. And if you're here for a speech on how I navigated that with grace in class, this is not that speech. Oops. So I had to relearn the lessons that combat taught me. And ironically, they actually applied to motherhood and fighting fraud. That's my first day back to work. What are those lessons? The first is to make your vision known. Ensuring that there is a strategic alignment on a vision ensures that there's continuity in a crisis. So in naval aviation, we call this command by negation. When you're flying over hostile territory, controlling 80 aircraft, and suddenly you don't have comms, you have no radio comms, you have to know what the intent is so that you can ensure that those orders are executed. That also applies outside of the military as well. Ensuring what the vision is ensures that, having that alignment on the vision ensures that there's continuity in a crisis. So my crisis was that my boss, who's back there, actually was out in the hospital with having his first child, so he was with his wife, and his boss was in the hospital with COVID. Left me with a lot of responsibility. But at ID.me, we know we have a very strong alignment to our values and our vision, and so I always knew what those values were, and it helped make a lot of the decisions that had to be made much clearer during that time. Now, during that time, I had major imposter syndrome, and I had to practice confidence as a habit. What I realized was that if I could be a mission commander for an $80 million aircraft controlling 80 aircraft over hostile territory as a 26-year-old, I could do this. That's how I feel about motherhood too. I have no idea what I'm doing. Everything I know about motherhood I've learned from Instagram and combat, ironically enough. But I practice it every day. I do the Mel Robbins high five yourself in the morning every day. And confidence is something you have to practice. You have to cultivate it. Totally switching gears. Going into another thing that I've learned about siloing information is dangerous. Extremely dangerous in the military. What I found in combat was when there's information that is relayed from an aircraft without a chat capability, that information is critical and it has to be relayed to a command node immediately because information is dynamic and it changes constantly. This also applies outside of combat and outside of the military. So when we're fighting fraud, we were seeing attack vectors from all over the place, and we had to share that information with all of our state partners to ensure that the attackers and the fraudsters couldn't exploit weaknesses that they were going to find at different states. We had to ensure that the information was always shared. The fourth thing is that grit goes a long way. Sheer determination of will and just an unerring decision to excellence gets you a long way. This year has felt like a deployment in a lot of ways. And so we've just had to kind of buckle down. I also joke that Sheer Determination of Knox would also be the title of my book about my now toddler. So what are the takeaways? Takeaways are make your vision known. Ensure that there is alignment on that vision across the organization or the agency. The numbers did not change. I just realized that. So anyways, there's supposed to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Confidence. We're just going to go with it. Confidence is a habit. That should say 2. So practice that confidence. Tear down the silos. Share that information and ensure that information is not siloed. And finally, have grit. Sometimes you just got to buckle down and do it. So with that, we'll do a little Rodney knife hand. Let's do it.